Hi everybody, Jillian here for Illustrated Faith's Print and Pray Shop, and I'm back with a new Bible journaling process video. Today I'm going to be in my interleaved journaling Bible in the book of Revelation, journaling some sermon notes in chapter 19, and using Vanessa Walker's Bits and Bobs set that coordinates with the new Good News devotional kit. Vanessa used art from Brianna Showalter, these gorgeous florals, and so I wanted to feature those alongside my sermon notes here. So to get some color on my page, I wanted to try something new to me using my gel plate. I'm using this small square here. I picked out some acrylic paint in colors that are really pretty light pastels that I thought coordinated with the florals pretty well. With my gel plate mounted to an acrylic block, you can see that I'm just putting the paint on with the brayer and then applying it to the page as if it was just a block of stamped color. After nearly every impression, there was some residual acrylic paint on the plate, and so I kind of like did a second generation stamp on top of some other areas of the page, and it looks really messy, but I like it in the end. It's different for me, very colorful. I think this would make a great background. Unfortunately, when I held up the printables that I planned to use next to this, these colors were simply too bright. And so I'll definitely try this again with another page, but in the meantime, I'm going to pivot from here. So I have the florals that I wanted to use printed on clear sticker paper, except for this large piece. Well, it is printed on sticker paper, but I decided that I wanted this backed instead with cardstock. So I had some scrap white cardstock. I applied the sticker to it and then I fussy cut it out because I want to layer the two together, and you'll see what I mean by that in a minute. But first I have to paint over this. So I'm going to speed this up because I've done something pretty similar to this. I grabbed, instead of 6 or 7 different pastel colors, three that are pretty close to each other on the color wheel: a light blue, a darker blue, and like a lilac purplish color. And I blended those together with some water and just did, a solid cover over all of that other acrylic paint. I thought about doing some paint splatters here with a Neocolor crayon, but didn't want to do that in the end. So now that my paint is mostly dry, pretty dry, I'm going to go in with some white acrylic paint so that I have a landing spot for my focal points, including these florals and some stamping and journaling and things like that. I hit that with my heat tool to help speed up the drying process, added one more layer of white acrylic paint, and here we go. So I have some dimensional foam adhesive that I'm applying to the back of my cardstock floral image, and then those other pieces that are printed on sticker paper. And so my plan was to put those pieces printed on sticker paper like layered underneath the cardstock florals. And so it's kind of like just a really cool dimensional look, like there's even more florals and branches and greenery and things like that sticking out from the main focal floral, if that makes any sense. You may be wondering, Jillian, why are you using so many florals in the book of Revelation? I don't get it, and that's an excellent question. For the last few weeks at church, we've been looking at the Lord's Supper, the meaning of it, God's purpose for it in our lives, and this was the last installment of it as we looked at the marriage supper of the Lamb that's recorded in Revelation 19. My pastor said when we celebrate the Lord's Supper, we are not just remembering the past, the cross, but we are also tasting the future. We await the marriage supper of the Lamb. And so the church, the bride, await the bridegroom's, that's Christ, return and our wedding. In my sermon notes, it says, the marriage supper of the Lamb is that glorious feast in heaven when God and his people will finally be together with no sin, separation, sickness, sorrow, strife, or death. Wow. So I definitely wanted to incorporate this lamb. I remembered, oh yeah, Taylor had this really great devotional about this time last year, the shepherd and the lamb, and this is the Lamb of God stamp set that coordinates with it. It's still available in the Illustrated Faith shop, but I definitely wanted to feature that on my page here. So I put a little stand-in guide to make sure that he would fit where I wanted him to, and then I used some pinkish paint in a kind of ombre application, and then used some black StazOn ink to stamp this guy down and then fussy cut him. So it's a little more interesting than just stamping him on plain white cardstock. So I'll go ahead and get him adhered down and then start working on my title. For my title, I'm going to use the Mary Alpha stamp for like my feature word, and then for the rest of my title, I typed up the phrase on that same scrap white cardstock, and then we'll just cut that out as if it's wordfetti and layer that on top. Because this K is so ornate, I ended up removing that floral piece, stamping down the rest of it, and then putting it back. Because it's dimensional, I couldn't simply stamp on top of it because that would look weird. So now that guy's in place, not going anywhere, I added some of the Lauren washi tape in little bits here and there to just kind of add some interest behind the wordfetti and some of those other floral pieces. I have been loving this Be Mine stamp set from Shauna, and so I stamped down the phrase, I am yours and you are mine. And then I'm journaling this little bit from my sermon notes. We saw how the Lord's Supper is like an engagement ring. It proclaims committed love, that a future joy awaits, and says, this one is taken. And I loved that sentiment, so I wanted to feature that here prominently on the page. This one is taken. Towards the bottom, I definitely wanted to include the scripture reference that I had mentioned, so I added some more of that Lauren washi, another Be Mine stamp, put some hearts around there, and then using this special journaling pen to write on mixed media, I wrote that reference. I'm going to outline the passage that I'm journaling, Revelation 19, about 6 to 9, over on the left side, add a little floral piece there to tie the two together, and that's it. So here are some pictures of my finished page. If you guys are interested in any of the items that I've used, I've got them linked down in the video description below. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week, remembering whose you are. I'll see you soon.